Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast, where we break mental health stigmas through conversations. I'm your host, Nat, and we dive into topics about trauma and how it impacts the nervous system. Yet we don't just leave you there. We share insights and tools of self-care, meditation, and growth that help you be curious about your own biology. Your presence matters. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Help our community grow. Let's get into this. Oh, and please remember to be kind to yourself. Welcome to the Lift Oneself podcast. Holly, I am so thankful you're here with me.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Let's take a breath together. I'll ask you to close your eyes. And for the listeners, if you're able to, close your eyes. If you're driving, just keep your eyes open, but you can still follow the prompts. And just settle into your body and begin breathing in and out through your nose. If that's too difficult for you, then just do your mouth breathing. Yeah, what you're going to do is bring your awareness to watching your breath. And just watch your breath go in and out. And just drop into your body some more. Allow the feeling and sensations to come up and just pass through you while staying with your breath. I'm going to ask you, Holly, to create an intention in your mind of what you want to bring forth in the podcast. And for the listeners, I ask you to have that intention and just to release it energetically into your body, into your energy, into your voice, into your mind, while still staying with your breath and having that intention released. At your own time and your own pace, I'm going to ask you to gently open your eyes. How's your heart doing?
Good.
Tell the listeners a little bit more of who Holly Porter is.
Good question. There's been lots of times in my life I've struggled with that question, as probably all of us have. But first of all, I'm a mom, which I'm most proud of, and a wife, and a daughter of God, and someone who wants people to maybe look up to, as far as, I don't want to make those mistakes. I want to learn from what she's already been through and not make those mistakes, because there are people that have paid the price already. We don't have to go through all of the life challenges and mind games and things on our own. There's people there. Your podcast, for one, is something that if people are showing up on, they're learning. They will learn if they're open-minded, right?
Very much so. Can you let the listeners know what it is that you offer into the world? What are your services?
Well, I've had 11 startup companies, so they've been all over the place, and I changed businesses and companies. I usually had 3 or 4 at a time, and I would, as my kids were growing up, when they were little, I had a daycare, then I had a preschool, I had a salon and spa, a fundraising company when they were working in their sports activities and things. I'm a real estate broker still, and I had a life-changing experience a couple years ago, and that, while I was in a coma, basically got on a different path, got really shared with what I should be doing and starting a nonprofit. And I was just starting a software company, which I've never had tech in my wheelhouse, and I came up with this great idea, and honestly, no one has built what we're building. So it's coming in stages. It's been a 2.5-year progress, and we just hit the like button on it this morning. So I'm really excited about it. So it's a retreat. That's really my moneymaker, right? The nonprofit is my philanthropy and my heart. It's for people with long COVID because that's me since my journey. And the other is a retreat leader software. So all thing retreats, I almost could blanket it and say event wise, but we're focused on retreat venues, hosting, booking, and education, learning how to do retreats. So there's really just anything in that space they'll be able to find on the site.
And I want to congratulate you because anything that we put live, it's like putting our baby out there and it's like, oh my gosh, is it going to work? Is it going to be scrutinized?
Yeah.
Is it going to have accomplishments? All
I'm
the
not gonna lie, my gut's like going, oh, because you're right, it's been a lot of work and it's not perfect. And I'm like, get over it. It's not
yeah,
perfect. And we're
you
phase
learn.
one. We did phase zero, phase one. We still have two and three coming, right? As we raise more money for development. So yeah, get over it. It's not perfect.
And I always remember Jack Canfield, you always have to shoot to be able to know where your aim is and to always adjust your aim. But if you never shoot, you'll never know where the aim is. And so a lot of people get frozen and stuck by not shooting because they want perfection, where it's like, no, you learn in the messiness, you learn in the errors. That's what learning is. It's not about getting all the answers right. It's about learning and discovering what is it, how we manipulate this and everything else. Um, Tell us more about what happened, with this illness that you had. I'm presuming that it was COVID that
It
you
worked.
contracted. Tell us more about what that journey was and how you experienced it.
Yeah. Well, I never thought I would get COVID. I was a really healthy person and I just like, whatever, kind of blew it off. I went to a conference and I came back with the Delta version, which is still, of all of them, was still by the far worst. So I fought it for about a week. We were living in a fifth wheel waiting for our house to close. And I fought it there until I don't even remember that week hardly at all. I remember people were bringing us and leaving food on the steps. My husband got it thanks to me a couple days after I did, and I just remember intuitively waking up one morning and I couldn't breathe, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it had been 1 week, and I said, "Get me to the ER." Like I feel like I have an elephant on my chest. I can't breathe. When I got there, my oxygen was 63, which 100's normal. I mean, in the 90s is where they like you to stay. If you get under 90 with COVID, that's usually when they said get help. So it was 63. Within 30 minutes, I was in the ICU in my own room, which if you've ever been to the ER and know how long that process takes, that was a miracle in itself. And there so many miracles happen. Like I never had insurance until 2 months before I got sick, and my bill was $1 million. So that began my first day in the ICU of 70. And I was intubated twice. And each time you literally had to sign while you're almost dying to have them intubate you. Like they didn't want any responsibility. And I'm thinking in real estate, that's calling signing under duress. How are you not under duress? I don't know how that would hold up. But anyway, I remember thinking, that's dumb. Like I'm going to sign my life away. But I also, my sisters had to go to the hospital with me because my husband was not admitted in there because he had COVID. I could have one person with me every 24 hours. And relatively the first few days, maybe within the first couple even, they knew intuitively, they were really in tune with me. They knew that I needed someone there 24/7, which is really strange because I'm super independent. Every fear, I never had anxiety. They started staying with me. And I remember the nurses asking them, "Are you sure she wasn't on medicine for anxiety? Because it's really bad." And I think about it now and I'm like, well, let me take your oxygen away and let's see how you react. Right? I
Yeah.
couldn't breathe. But my sisters had recorded things with my husband, like when the intubation, the decision to make. And honestly, I remember listening to that a few months ago and crying for myself because I knew that was pretty much my last resort, right? Because I'm super natural healer. So I didn't really want to be intubated. but I knew I couldn't breathe and I knew I couldn't keep going on and my organs would have started failing. And so I agreed to do that. But we kind of all knew back then, most people didn't come off. So for them to take me off and then turn around 24 hours later, breathe at me again. Um, I mean, when you get on a trach, that's usually a good sign. They take you out the ventilator. You're still on a ventilator, but you have a trach. And anyway, so that was kind of my journey from there. And I was in a coma a lot of the times. I lost all five senses. So most people would lose their taste and smell from COVID. So I didn't have any of that, but they would tie your hands to the bed so you wouldn't pull the ventilator out. Had no
Yeah.
desire to do that, by the way. I was like, just get me better. That's helping me breathe. But I can touch anything. And then I wear contacts. And so I didn't have my glasses or contacts on while I was in there. I couldn't see who anyone was. Plus, they were all covered up so much because it was the ICU. So unless someone was about 8 inches in front of my face, I only saw really their eyes. I couldn't really tell who anyone was. I couldn't see. And then the ventilator took like 90% of my hearing away. It sounded like the Charlie Brown teacher. Oh, oh, oh. You know how they have her talking in the background, you never can hear what she says.
Yeah.
That's what everybody sounded like. So the fact that they put me in a coma most of the time was a miracle. Like, I don't know, mentally, that was a weird space to be.
Yeah. What did you discover? Were there any insights or were there any things that came up that you discovered more about yourself?
Oh, I always knew I was a fighter, but it really showed me how much of a fighter I was because there were so many days I prayed to die. It was not a fun place to be. And the defining moment, do you want me to share like the defining moment when I knew I'd live?
Of course.
So I had lots of out of body experiences. I had a near death experience, but this particular one is what they call a spiritual transformational experience. And I had a cousin that had sent a text to my sisters, and it was she's very spiritual, and she said, I had this experience, and I asked who all was there, and I want you to read this to Holly. I wouldn't normally text it, but I feel like she needs to hear it right now. And it was basically that these people all came and were in there supporting me and there for me. And I remember getting put back in my coma, and I remember being really mad. I remember just like kind of like she's kind of like a sister. She's a cousin, but she's like a sister. So you know how you get that little snotty, well, I'm like, well, I'm the one suffering. How come she got that and I didn't? I mean, that's not fair. It was that kind of talk with God. And that's not right. I'm suffering, and my prayer was a lot of times, look, if this is how it's gonna be, then take me out now. I'm done. This is like not a good experience. And if I'm supposed to live, then get me better. So that was really my talk. And right after that is when I had my mom had passed away about a year and a half before. And I had a lot of spiritual people tell me, I mean, like more than 10, that that your mom was there with you a lot. And yeah, she was on your right side. They always said she was on your right side. I'm like, yeah, she was, you're right. And it was great confirmation that I didn't think I was just like, dreaming it or whatever. But she came to me, and you hear the people that talk about these experiences where people say, it's not your time, go back, you hear that. Everybody's heard that, but it's true. It really does happen. And she just basically said to me, that it's not, you need to go back, that it really isn't your time to be here, and leave. So you need to go back to your body. And as soon as she told me that I needed to fight. And it's interesting because that word I don't like. It just is such a negative fight, well, it changed it for me. And she said, when she said that, I had all so I had oh my gosh, so many people, but I had all in white appeared my grandparents, and they were all around like maybe my age. I remembered them older, but grandparents, my favorite aunt, my grandbaby that had just passed away a couple or 6 months before this, my brother that passed away and his wife, like they all appeared and they started chanting, fight, fight, fight. And every time they would say fight, another group of people would appear behind them. So then, my husband's there. Now my kids are there. Now my close friends are there. And it went on and on and on. And there were so many people there. And now I do know that there was people I didn't even know. And now I know those were the people that were I was on so many prayer lists and so many, no, I almost would tell you nobody thought I was going to make it. Right. And so all those people I felt and I saw, and even though they were chanting, fight, fight, like that was the defining moment that I knew I got this. This is gonna suck, but I'm gonna get through this and we're gonna get out of here. And so that experience.
Yeah. Now, coming out of COVID, how has that journey been? Because it, from what I hear from a lot of people, it disrupts what your previous life was and you're going into a new life. So what did that look like? What did the resilience look like? What did those conversations with God look like?
Oh, you mean while I was still in my coma?
Well, when like you made a decision to fight, so when you were out of the hospital, now coming into your personal life, how did that look like going through, grieving the old Holly,
Yeah.
because the old Holly could do certain things. Now this new Holly had to learn how to adjust in this new body, new energy, and relationships
No
with
energy.
yeah.
um,
Um,
yeah. Well, okay. So when you are that sick, it takes a long time to get better. So I remember, like, it was a big thing when I could even hold my phone in the hospital. And then when I went to the second hospital, I had a iPad that was on a, stand-up case and that you could lift up and it would hold up by itself, just to hold that. Like, it weighed 1,000,000 pounds. So then when I got out, the biggest struggle was probably the brain fog. Like I was walked in with no medication and I walked out with 12. Remember, I'm a natural healer. So that in itself, I could have never figured out that medication on my own and when I needed to take it. Like, your brain is mush. And a lot of it was the COVID fog. A lot of it was probably the medications they had me on. I mean, you think about, I had everything, you name it, I had it. And that probably caused a lot of my long COVID, I believe, issues now. So that it just was that baby steps. I begged them not to let me go into the third hospital and send me to my son's house, because they had just built a house. It was all on one level. There was a bathroom and bedroom. I couldn't even go to the bathroom by myself. I left on oxygen for months. I was on a walker. I mean, think about it. When you're laying in bed, I lost 30 pounds in 70 days. So you're just, all your muscles, everything's mush, and you just have no strength. And so to gain that back, I had to learn, first I had to learn how to breathe and then swallow and then talk. I mean, the therapy they make you do. I just remember hating that the most about the hospital. They made you stand up, and it's like, I can't even move my finger and you're going to make me stand up. But it just, so that process is just what I said, a process. And so that mental state that you need to get your mind in, that, okay, God saved me. He really did. I know that. What am I going to do about it? And what am I going to do next? I mean, I literally, I have so many diagnoses, if we want to say, since I got out of the hospital with my health. I could be on disability for any number of them, but I chose not to, because I felt like in my mind that would limit me in getting better. Right. I mean, everybody, I know there's nothing wrong with that. I have a daughter that's on disability, a sister on disability. It's not, but for me, I did real estate. I could go sell one house and make what they would pay me in a whole year. So I felt like it would inhibit me to do that. But there were many times, because I mean, my income, went to nothing. I didn't work for a long time, but I had miracles with that. I'd had the biggest real estate sale just before I got sick, and the biggest check I'd ever got. So it's like things just worked out and got us through. We were in the middle of buying our house. I woke up one morning and my gut said, check your bank account. And I went and pulled it up, and someone had done what they just say, an account takeover. So we had 12 bank accounts, and they had taken, oh, they left maybe $4 in some of them, but all of them transferred the money into our personal account and then took it all. And our down payment to our house was in there. So I was like, what? We got it back, by the way. But we had to let the first house under contract go because they didn't know if I was going to live. So that house was out of the question. This one was a new one we had found. I call it our COVID house because it's not normally what I would have picked, but at the time it's what we got, and it just worked. So it was fine, but we were able to do that. And then like an hour later, I went to my pulmonologist, and all these doctors, they have no clue. I mean, no clue about COVID. I've been to two new ones that I had to do in the last week, and they're both like, "Oh, we've learned a lot from you today." And I'm thinking, and why am I paying you the big bucks, right? They just don't even know. Back to my story. Sorry, I digress.
Okay, no, you didn't. It's giving other people relatability of the frustration when you have to advocate in a medical system when they're not able to have the vulnerability of, we don't know what we're doing, so we have to, you are our class right now. We're learning through your experiences and stuff like that. And unfortunately, we may not have the remedies for you yet. We will work at it to, and I think
Yeah.
that would be a totally different relationship with the medical field than you feeling like, well, they come at, like, we know all the answers and we know this, and it's like, but you're not listening to me, or I have to advocate for things, and you're not letting me know that you really have no clue what you're doing right now.
Yeah, and a big part of what I want to say right now is have an advocate, because this is what happened. I just lost all the money out of my accounts. They were an hour later, I show up at the pulmonologist. He turns around and looks at me. This is the first thing he said, not like, how you doing? Hi, whatever. First thing he says to me is, we probably ought to talk about getting you on a lung transplant list. And I'm like, what? What? What are you talking about? Do you have the right file in front of you? And he's like, yeah. I said, I had COVID. And he goes, yeah, but we have a diagnosis for you now. And I'm like, okay. And he says, you have pulmonary fibrosis, and that's scarring on your lungs. I knew what cystic fibrosis was, but I'd never even heard of pulmonary fibrosis. I didn't even know what pulmonary was. Now I know it's to do with your lungs, right? I didn't know any of this because I was just never sick. So he basically, yeah, starts talking about that. I ended up changing pulmonologist. I just didn't like his bedside manner. I just like, give it to me straight, sure. But it's like, what the heck? So I learned, I mean, I started welting up in tears, but I just lost all my money. I was in the middle of getting the house.
You don't even need to lose your money to hear that you want to do a lung transplant on me. Like, whoa, like
I just, one of those top 5 days you'll never forget. So I went home and I Googled what it was. Don't ever do that because you're dying if you Google whatever you have, you're dying, right? So I was, yeah, and I'm alone in my fifth wheel sitting there going, well, this sucks. I mean, literally, it's like, okay. It said you had 1 to 2 years to live, or you can get a lung transplant, which is worse than a heart transplant, I found out. And you might live 10 years. And I'm thinking, okay, so God gave me some things to do. That means I have less than 10 years to get them done, get on it, right? And so that was kind of that story. But my thing is always have someone there with you, because the brain fog, even now I still suffer with some when I have relapses that I miss the words. So like I'll pause sometimes and I'll be like, I know the first letter and directions. I'm a realtor. Luckily, Google usually gets me in the right place, right where I need to go. But I I mean, you kind of need to know where you're going, but I literally live on a corner house on a busy street, and I've drove by it at least twice. Like my own house. I mean, it's just like you have no sense of direction. Stuff I go to every day, I can't remember. Do I turn on this street? I mean, a lot of that's normal stuff we all kind of go through, but it's like 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. Life's definitely different.
Yeah, no kidding. Did you have to, like, what did the second pulmonary specialist say? Like, are they saying lung transplant or?
Well, she said time will tell. She's way more patient, gives me lots of time when we're in there, of our questions and stuff. So the second diagnosis I had, I'm only doing this for educational purposes because honestly, I don't like to even be attached to diagnoses
Of course, of
because,
course.
I mean, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to share anything. I just am saying that in my mind, I'm like, no, I don't have that. Not in denial, but just like, let's
Oh,
work
yeah.
with it, right? I believe our bodies are made to heal.
Yep.
And I think a lot of our, especially autoimmune things, come because of our mental state, our physical state, our emotional state. I think we can create a lot of that. I mean, I know people that have things like that don't want to sometimes look at it that way, but that's my belief.
Yep.
And she said, the second diagnosis was rheumatoid arthritis. And I was a level 2 within 3 months out of the hospital. I mean, what it does, COVID catches anything you might have had on fire. And so like I didn't have anything wrong. And all of a sudden I have all these things wrong, but they were probably sitting dormant in my body. I'd had frozen shoulder over the years and I'd had a bunion removed. And my rheumatologist said that's all part of it. And so
Yeah.
maybe it would never manifested and got worse, but now it did. So it also can affect rheumatoid is the most painful arthritis that there is. And
Hmm.
I'm sorry if anyone listening has it because I get it. It's rough. And they, a lot of people just want to throw you on all these medications and I tried a couple different things, but then it brought my immune system down and it's already down. So I was sick all the time and I was like, this isn't living. I'd rather be in pain and living my life than sitting in bed all day, right? And
Yeah.
so the rheumatoid arthritis can also affect your lungs. So that's where we're at now. Here we are a couple of years down the road. I mean, one positive thing is the next CAT scan that I had done. So pulmonary fibrosis, usually the scarring in your tissue and lungs, it usually just gets worse. I mean, I hate to say it, but you pretty much end up suffocating to death, right? Not a good feeling. Losing my breath is how I'm going out. That's not
Yeah.
what the green does.
No.
Oh, anyway, so that's what happens. Well, it either stays the same or it gets worse. And then that's how you end up dying. Well, the next 6 months later, I had the CAT scan. And when she was reading it, we were doing just a phone call. She was reading it, and you could hear this long pause. And she's like, huh. She's like, it's actually better. And I'm like, hell yeah, you should see what I've been doing to make myself well. Yeah, you know. And so I was happy about that. And then the 6 months later, it was the same. So it's not worse. So better is better is what I say. And I mean, I'm a miracle that I'm alive now. I went to pulmonary rehab one day, and that gal, I was doing some testing, and I said, hey, I have a question for you. I said, why is it with COVID being what it is and so many people needing to recover, why are there only 2 of us in the pulmonary rehab program, which I knew about because they were doing special things that kept canceling the classes? I don't know, because maybe there was only 2 of us. And I knew the other guy, he kind of followed he was in the hospital just before me and had been intubated and almost died. And she like calmly pushes her stool back and turns around, looks me right in the eyes, and she said, because they don't live to need it. And that, and my heart just sank. And I thought, wow, how grateful. I mean, I'm here. How many didn't live? We all probably know somebody that died from COVID. And I don't want to waste a day. I want to make sure that I'm a blessing in people's life. And my last 2 years out of it have been honestly as good as a lot of things have happened. And I listened and I started the company and the nonprofit that I was supposed to do with so many detours, so many heart-wrenching detours in my life the last 2 years that, I mean, I've been married to my husband 22 years, but I have been married 4 times. I'm not afraid to admit that. So 3 divorces put together, almost dying. Nothing touched the emotional nightmare that I've lived the last 2 years. Like, I don't think anyone will ever understand how mentally taxing it has been, even though so many good things, like I said, have happened as well. All that put together didn't add up to what happened and what I lived through, and just heart-wrenching things. And they didn't end well, by the way. The fight, there's that word again, that I had to put up for some grandkids and things didn't end well for my husband and I. And I had to walk away knowing that God sometimes makes the decision for us, because I would have never stopped fighting for my family ever. And so when that decision is made for you and you have to move on, I don't, I've dealt with a lot of grief. I've dealt with a lot of death in my life, but um, I don't know. I almost feel like, and I'm sorry if this offends anyone, I almost feel like grief is worse when you have to grieve somebody who's still living, because there's an end when you know they die. You know you'll never see them, and you know that you can't make memories with them anymore. But when they are still alive and people maybe aren't letting you see them, or on a very limited basis when you've practically raised them in your home, heartbreaking. So that being said, and it's still emotional because again, they're family, right? They're my heart.
Of course.
I know I have a calling, and I know what I'm doing is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's also, I know I can't do that without the financial means. And so if I don't move forward and create the financial means, there's a lot of things I want to do because of that situation and what happened. And I can't do that without money. And so it's not, my life's never really been about money.
Mhm.
But now it's like, if you want to make that happen, then you need a lot of money
Mhm.
to save. How many other kids can you save if you do this? And so every day, that's kind of my why, is get up and it's like, nope. I feel like my grandkids had to have, and I mean relationship, I'm talking about sibling relationships and children relationships. It's just everything was affected, and you would think that when you almost die, that people would like pull you towards them. Oh, I want you closer. I want this relationship better. And it was the exact opposite. And that was tough. We have 8 children, and that was tough. It was like, wow. So it's a hard look at who I am, who, I mean, and not really who they are, because it's not my place to judge who they are. I'm in charge of me.
Mhm.
So sorry, that was like a long answer to.
No, no. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for allowing us to enter into that sensitive place, that sensitive wound, and, expressing what it looks like for having grief with people that are living. It's a conversation that isn't really heard much. It's mostly you grieve about somebody that's no longer here, yet there is grief with people that are still living that you're no longer in contact with, in relationship with. So
Yeah.
thank you for allowing that space for us to enter into that and sharing that. My heart goes out to you. It's, not easy to share our stories and be as vulnerable as you have been right now. So it's a tremendous gift that you just allowed us to have and see what resilience really looks like. And how you said, like the path, like you said, we would think that everything is so everybody's appreciating and gratitude and bring it in. And it's like, what the heck kind of disruption was this, that everything is going totally opposite than what I thought it was supposed to look like, and how these things are dismantling, and how am I supposed to navigate through that
Yeah.
right
Well,
now?
oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No,
I
go
did
ahead.
have a solution. I don't know how to work out because it hasn't happened yet, but I decided, I mean, we have 8 kids, so they're all adults and married and have 17 grandkids now. And I decided Mother's Day has been rough the last couple of years, but last year in particular, when it hurt more than any other time, because a lot of this was going on. And I felt like that I said it's ruined for me forever. Why does it have to be ruined for me forever?
Hmm.
Yeah, it was a sucky time. So I one day, just a few weeks ago, woke up with an idea that, you know what? I mean, first I was like, I'm gonna be gone out of town on Mother's Day. I'm gonna be doing something super fun, doing some self-care, whatever, because I felt like it's gonna be a really emotional day. And I decided, no, I've got there's seven, counting my daughters and my daughter-in-laws, there's seven moms. And I thought, they're all moms. So I put together these cute little personal retreat bags where, just like fun girly stuff. And of course they're pink headbands, pink facings, but face mask, lotion, chapstick, all the girly stuff. And I just decided I'm going to handwrite them each a note, letting them know how much I appreciate them, pick out their good things about them and talk about them. And I mean, they're good mothers. All of them are good mothers, and it's Mother's Day. And I just decided, to heal my heart, I'm not going to be attached to any of that outcome. I'm going to make sure they get it a couple days before Mother's Day, and then whatever happens, happens, and I'm just going to let it be. And I feel like that's going to be super healing for me. Even my husband, when I told him I was going to do it, he said, well, they're not your mother. Why would you do that? And he's not a negative person, by the way. So
Yeah.
he knows how bad I was hurt.
Yeah.
And I said, because they're mothers and they're good mothers, and I appreciate that they are good mothers to my grandkids. So
What
anyway, there's
beautiful.
another heart one.
Yeah, what a beautiful gift of celebrating the role of mother and showing that appreciation,
Yeah.
even despite all, like you're doing alchemy right now. You're taking the impurities and you're turning it into gold. You're making that decision. You're not allowing your feelings to control the wheel to want to escape and isolate. You are actually taking control of validating your emotions. Yeah, it sucks, yet this is how we want to show up. And that
Yeah.
is the work, because it's so easy to allow our feelings to take over the driver, and I'm going to go make it feel good and make them regret or make it feel whatever, where it's like, no, 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 no. Validate that this hurts, yet how can I show up in a way that is rewarding and feels fulfilling? And what a beautiful gift it is, because a lot of mothers aren't appreciated of just being showed, like, I see you and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And that's a beautiful, beautiful gift you're giving yourself to give to others, of repairing that wound.
Yeah. Whether
Yeah.
it does with them is not for me
Yeah.
to judge, right? Let's just let it go. It's funny how they say, I mean, I'm a speaker, I've spoke for years, and it's like they always say, don't speak in front of an audience until you're through it. But when it's your heart, do you really get through it? I
No.
mean, if you're a robot, maybe, and you're not an emotional, it's interesting how I cried every day those last 2 years when that was going on, every day. And I'm not a crier. Look at me now. And that's changed for me. I think I just felt things at a deeper level. I was always like, don't let them see you cry. Don't let them see you cry. I mean, my husband could probably tell you on one hand in 22 years how many times he saw me cry before the last 2 years. So it's okay. It's just, we
Yeah.
gotta, no, I'll probably never get all the way through it. I'll
No.
just look at
Yeah.
God show me different ways to handle it, right?
Yeah. It's different pangs and, it's discoveries. What would you have? What is a message for the listeners that, experience COVID, that can hear your message, or even just can relate to the message of the pain of grieving people that are living? What is a message you want to leave with them to empower them to keep moving forward?
Yeah. Well, our nonprofit is called Adventure Bucket Wish Foundation. And we help people with long COVID create memories, create experiences that they wouldn't normally have, along with creating awareness. The biggest message I want to say with people that had COVID, there was I mean, can I do it with the story? I don't know. So one of my guests on my podcast that had long COVID, she was in the hospital 4 months. She had a baby while she was in there. So she goes in 38 weeks pregnant. As soon as they do an emergency C-section, take the baby. She never saw the baby for 3 months. And then the last month she was in the hospital, she finally got to see her brand new first baby, by the way. Husband had COVID. So that was her story. The husband got COVID at the same time. He never had any symptoms, nothing. He didn't get sick, nothing, but tested positive for COVID. But he has long COVID. So he has all the fatigue issues. There's 200 symptoms attached to having COVID. And a lot of people just don't even, there's 65 million people that are documented that have long COVID, but there's so many that don't even know it. I think I'm watching cancer. I have had melanoma cancer now twice in 2 years. And I just think all these things catch on fire in your body, but a lot of people aren't relating. Oh, I didn't have that before COVID. Maybe it's connected. And I think they just don't realize that. And so if you're hearing me and you're hearing that, maybe check that out, because that's a possibility that it could be COVID related, where you're getting things now. And I think it's just learning to accept that life might look different for you when we have these challenges and we have these adversity things come up. Is how brave are you going to be? How much resiliency are you going to have to a situation? And think about, I mean, it's such a hard, it shouldn't be hard, but it is. It's a challenging question to ask yourself, like, who do I want to be seen as? If things have changed in your life, no matter what the situation is, COVID or whatever, and there's always going to be sticks and stones thrown at us, right? But who are you going to be in the end? Are you going to stand up, or are you going to let it knock you down? And what does that look like for you? And if you need help, Google, YouTube University, you can learn anything you want for free, right?
Yeah.
There's help out there for free. You can get any knowledge that you really need for free if you look for it. So just search. I get help. Listen more podcasts like yours. That's out there. Just get the help that you need, but you also have to recognize that you need the help. A lot of people just don't. They're stuck in that victim mentality and they don't know how to get out.
Yeah. I'm going to bring you into a reflective question.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to bring your awareness now to your 18-year-old self. And you're able to tell your 18-year-old self 3 things to carry you through the journey to now. What would those 3 words be?
There are 5 words. It's going to be a journey. That's just what's coming up for me.
That's fine.
Hang on tight. There's my 3. Hang on tight.
Okay. Where can the listeners find you?
Well, my email is holly@hollyporter.com. And I'm on Facebook under Holly Ann Porter. I'm on all social media. My website's hollyporter.com. So you can look for me there, and yeah, we'd love to have, if you know anyone with long COVID, we are always looking for guests on our podcast for that, for my philanthropy business. And retreat rnr.com is our brand new one. You want to go learn about events and learn about how to do retreats. There's just all kinds of things on there for retreat leaders. So love you to check that out. And there's a place I think you can ask for help. And we love feedback, because it's not the perfect site we want, but right, Airbnb had to start somewhere too. So that's where we are.
Exactly. And I'm very proud of you launching and having the courage to do that for yourself and adjusting as you go on. As we can always see, everything's going to be messy, but we have to start from somewhere. And we just grow by that way. And it's having the confidence that, you know what, we can deal with the messiness, we can deal with the adversity, and just find the solutions and just keep going on. And being in the intention. Talking about intention, are you willing to share what the intention was for the podcast?
Yeah, it was feeling and creating peace. I hope people felt that.
Did you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That was cute. Great way to start.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I want to thank you for everything that you are contributing in the world and sharing your vulnerability today, sharing your light. And I'm very thankful you're on this side of love, still, kicking and laughing and dancing and enjoying life, and also allowing yourself to have the space to cry, to get angry, and feel the array of all your emotions while being human and still finding the courage to still keep moving forward. So thank you for being a guest, and please remember to be kind to yourself.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, you made it all the way here. I appreciate you and your time. If you found value in this conversation, please share it out. If there was somebody that popped into your mind, take action and share it out with them. It possibly may not be them that will benefit, it's that they know somebody that will benefit from listening to this conversation. So please take action and share out the podcast. You can find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Lift Oneself. And if you want to inquire about the work that I do and the services that I provide to people, come over on my website, come into a discovery call, liftoneself.com. Until next time, please remember to be kind and gentle with yourself. You matter.